Michael Caputo again. StillStandingPodcast.com. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I really appreciate it. This whole Mueller investigation seems to be moving toward some kind of conclusion. It's hard to say if Director Mueller is really looking to get to an end here soon, or if he's been kind of emboldened by the Democrats taking control of the House of Representatives. Most of the people who know Director Mueller say he's not motivated by politics. I used to believe that too. I don't think I'm so sure about it anymore. With the Democrats now in charge of the House of Representatives, the director now has a pretty, open, field to run, not only to do his own investigation, but to fuel an impeachment if that's what he wants to do. You hear anybody who has experience with Director Mueller, who likes Director Mueller, they'll tell you his end goal isn't impeachment, it's justice. I don't know what that really means in the end. Is justice clearing the president if in fact he's not involved in any collusion with the Russian with the Russians? I don't know. Or is justice for Mueller actually giving the establishment what they want, and that's the removal of the president of the United States? I'm telling you, from what I understand and from everyone I know within the Trump campaign and the Trump team in general, there was no Russian collusion. You can look at anything, that's been involved with this whole Russia investigation, from the House to the Senate to the Office of Special Counsel, all of them leaking like sieves. You see that they've got really no proof of any kind of collusion with Russia. They've got some indictments, some of them of Russians, but nothing to do with collusion. The indictments of the Americans are all about, perjury traps or financial crimes that have nothing to do with the President of the United States. But now they're starting to look like they're getting toward the end. It looks like a dead end, if you ask me. Kind of an alleyway, and they're reaching to, like, as if it were a maze, and they were finally winding their way through to the very end of the line. And at the end of that alley, that dead end alley, is Roger Stone. Along with Roger Stone, you have Randy Credico and Jerry Corsi, and a couple of witnesses who are associates of Roger, who I've known a long, long time, certainly all of my career. I was his driver when I was in my early 20s. At the end of the alley are these characters. Randy Credico, this once, long ago, a comedian, and now just kind of an addled freak show, or walking freak show, who is Roger's connection or source of information about WikiLeaks. Some time ago, he was admitting and proud of the fact that he was Roger's source for information on what WikiLeaks was up to. And then, of course, as soon as the water got hot around him, he started saying that he wasn't. And then you have Jerry Corsi, who was I actually never knew Jerry Corsi. I knew Credico. I always thought Credico was an idiot. But Corsi, I've never even known. I've never really heard much about him. I didn't even know that Roger was a friend of his. Apparently he was. Roger appears to have known Corsi for some years, always trying to help him out, get him jobs here or there, helping him with stories that he was doing. But Corsi apparently was the source of information that Roger was tweeting about when it came to the Podesta brothers. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the foreign agent registration list here in the United States to know that the Podesta brothers were representing all sorts of Russians, companies and organizations directly connected to the Kremlin and even to Vladimir Putin. They were representing the firms involved with the acquisition of Uranium One, 20% of American uranium resources. The Podestas were all the way wound up in this stuff, entangled as they could be in everything Russian. So apparently Corsi was writing about that stuff, shared it with Roger Stone, and Roger tweeted about it, saying that the Podestas' business was going to get them a lot of attention as the campaign in 2016 moved forward. Now, Corsi, of course, on his podcast this week, I've never known the guy, never really watched his podcast much, but I watched it this week like everybody else did. I feel really badly for the guy. I know he's kind of a conspiracy theorist. He worked at Human Events magazine. I used to work at Human Events. It was a great publication. Of course, he kind of went off into a different direction, 9/11 truther, a birther, I guess he actually didn't believe that there was much of a moon landing to begin with, but, I didn't know him. I had no opinion of him. I watched his podcast. I feel really badly for the guy. It appears what's happening to him is what happened to George Papadopoulos and what they tried to do to me at the Mueller investigation. If you understand what happened to George Papadopoulos, he was, sent an FBI informant, this Dr. Mifsud, who was rumored to be Russian intelligence, when in fact we're finding out now that he was connected to the FBI. Mifsud told him that the Russians were somehow in possession of Hillary's emails, and then the Mueller investigation. I'm sorry, not the Mueller investigation. The Department of Justice before the Mueller investigation sent an Australian diplomat who was working with the FBI, working with the Department of Justice, working with the Obama administration to spy on the Republican candidate for president. So this Australian diplomat, Downer, goes and asks Papadopoulos, did you hear anything about these, the Russians and the Hillary emails? So they gave him the information through Mifsud, and then they send somebody Downer to him to try to find, get that information out of him. And so Papadopoulos apparently comes back to the United States. The FBI snatches him up, and they ask him, when did you talk to Mifsud about these emails? Was it before you were on the campaign or after you were on the campaign? Now, here Papadopoulos is, as far as I can tell, in an airport, interrogation room or somewhere directly after he came back to the United States. And he answered, I think it was before I was on the campaign. And it was like, bingo. The FBI agents were like, you lied to us. You talked about this with Mifsud after you were hired by the campaign, but before the campaign announced that you were a volunteer advisor. Like that was some kind of huge difference, some kind of difference without a distinction, or a distinction without a difference, if you ask me. But that got him crossways in a 1001, as they call it, a 1001 violation. And he suddenly lied to an FBI agent. And they've got him, seems without an attorney, got him all scared, and they had him sign some paperwork, and there he is. He got Papadopoulos. Got absolutely caught up in a perjury trap, and they tried to get him to turn over information about Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. Of course, they gave him the information through their informant, Dr. Mifsud, about the allegation that the Russians had Hillary emails. By the way, we don't know that they did. In fact, the only people who thought they did were the FBI, and that was a fiction they created to entrap Papadopoulos. And they pulled it out of him through another FBI informant, this guy Downer out of the Australian Diplomatic Corps. The FBI seemed to be employing everybody all around. I mean, they got Papadopoulos in a perjury trap. They did the same thing to me. They sent an FBI informant to me, this guy Henry Greenberg, trying to offer negative information about Hillary Clinton to the Trump campaign. I was on the phone with him for about 45 seconds, a minute, in late May. And when the Mueller team interviewed me, they asked me, had any Russian ever offered you information about the Hillary Clinton campaign or about Hillary Clinton? I said, yeah, this guy Henry Greenberg, he was kind of a nutbag. He approached me. I was on the phone with him for 45 seconds. I threw him over to Roger Stone. Roger Stone met with him and figured out he was a nut job and kicked him to the curb. And they were like, well, when did that happen? This is the Mueller interrogator, investigator, prosecutor, whatever you want to call him. And I said, I don't know. I think it was after I left the campaign, so it was probably in late June. And he said, are you sure it was after you left the campaign? I said, I would think so, because why would I, kick him over to Roger Stone if I was on the campaign? It doesn't make any sense to me. And they said, well, Mr. Caputo, it actually happened in late May. And I thought, how do they know it was in late May? And they also told me that I had said that I thought Greenberg was an American citizen of Russian origin. And they said Greenberg is actually a Russian citizen. That really sounded odd to me. And they tried to jam me up on another 1001 violation, but I had a really good attorney in Dennis Vacco, and he got them to back off on that Papadopoulos trap on me. But it seemed really odd to me that they knew more about Greenberg than I ever did. So I hired an investigator in Russia and an investigator in the United States. And very soon I found out that Henry Greenberg was an FBI informant on the payroll with an informant visa to be in the United States for 17 years. Not only was he an informant, he was a criminal, had spent time in prison in the United States and in Russia for violent crimes, and he had no business being in the United States. None at all. But he was in the United States on an American informant visa, a visa specially designed for informants working for the FBI and the Department of Justice. And by the way, Greenberg's still here on an informant visa. They tried to Papadopoulos me. It appears they Papadopoulos in some way poor Jerry Corsi. And it's not clear. Corsi didn't seem to really know how they're going to indict him and on what, but he expects it. And of course, tomorrow is Friday. And, Friday seems to be when they pop these indictments out of the Mueller investigation. Corsi expects to be indicted. On his podcast, he said he expected to spend the rest of his life in prison. The guy's 71 years old, and he appears to be in good health. So it sounds like a pretty long sentence he expects. Looks like he's scared out of his mind. But here's what Jerry Corsi isn't doing. You know, when they grab you up on these 1001 violations, lying to an FBI agent like they did with Papadopoulos, they use that as leverage to get you to say what they need you to say to jam somebody else up. It's not clear what Papadopoulos gave up or if they got anything out of Papadopoulos at all, because frankly, Papadopoulos had no information. He was on a volunteer committee advising the campaign on policy issues, and the campaign really wasn't listening to them because we weren't talking about policy really all that much. There was a volunteer committee based in Washington when the campaign was based in New York. Those people rarely interacted with the campaign at all, and Papadopoulos only interacted once with the president. So he really didn't have anything to offer. They thought they got him. They snapped him up on a 1001 charge and got nothing out of it. So they think they have Corsi on a 1001 charge, and they said, I'm guessing, that Corsi, they said, hey, Dr. Corsi, you have now violated 1001. You've lied to an FBI agent. If you sign right here on this paper and admit to that and begin to cooperate with us, trying to give us information on Roger Stone, we'll be lenient with you. Looks to me like Dr. Corsi said no. Looks to me like no matter what kind of conspiracy theorist Dr. Corsi is, he's not a liar. He's not going to lie and try and implicate Roger Stone at the dead end of this Mueller investigation into Russian collusion. At the end of the alley, the last turn, all they have is Roger Stone. These sharks circling Roger Stone have zero evidence of Russian collusion. And the final hammers of this beating that we've all been going through for 18 months or so, those hammers are coming down on Dr. Corsi. I don't know the guy. He looks scared to death, but I think he's an honorable guy. He's not going to lie and tell the for the record the lies that the Mueller investigation needs to implicate Roger Stone. And by the way, this week Roger Stone found a cell phone with old text messages in it that prove that everything he's been saying is true. That Randy Credico, the freak show former comedian who apparently wears women's underwear, you get that? The guy walks around with his pants at his hips and wears women's underwear. Like, somehow or another, the Mueller investigation is predicating everything on a freak show comedian with an addled brain wearing women's underwear and a conspiracy theorist, Dr. Corsi, who refuses to lie to back up their theories. That's where they are at the end of this alleyway. That's really amazing to me. And in all of this, we now see that a woman named Jeannie Rhee, an attorney who worked for Hillary Clinton on multiple cases, Jeannie Rhee is the prosecutor trying to nail down Roger Stone. So here, at the end of this alleyway, surrounded by these characters, none of them are the kind of people that the Mueller team thought they'd be talking to at the end of all of this. They thought they'd be talking to people around Putin, and instead they're talking to a freak show comedian and a conspiracy theorist. One of them wearing women's underwear. It's hard to even believe this is where we are and this is what we paid for. And who is in charge of this final stage and the final days of the Mueller investigation? A Clinton hitter named Jeannie Rhee. It's like they finally took off all the masks. No more pretensions. They actually have a Clinton hitter in there in charge of the final stage of this investigation. No more pretensions of fairness. This is really about Hillary Clinton getting the revenge that she so desires for losing the election to Roger Stone. Let that sink in. This is where we are, America. I'm telling you, this weekend, on Saturday, I'm filling in on WBEN for a very popular radio show here in Buffalo, which you can hear nationally. It's called The Financial Guys. And on that show, I'm going to be bringing on a couple of different witnesses to the Mueller investigation, people who offered exculpatory information that absolutely and completely vindicates Roger Stone. And Roger Stone's going to be on it with me. We're going to find, if you listen to the Financial Guys, it's 1 to 3 on Saturday. I'll be tweeting out the link to that radio show. You'll learn a lot, because a lot's been going on in this investigation at this dead end with these crazy folks. All now the focus is on Jeannie Rhee, the Clinton hitter. This is where we are. So tune into the Financial Guys on WBEN. I'll put that link up on my Twitter, at Michael R. Caputo, 1 to 3 on Saturday, and you'll find out more. Thanks a lot for listening here on Still Standing. I'm Michael Caputo. Catch us again next week on audio and video.